Welcome to the Ensign College Thrive podcast. I'm Bruce Cush, the president of Ensign College, and I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Fox, Associate Director of Employer and Alumni Relationships here at Ensign College. This podcast explores the intersection of leadership, resilience, and faith. In each episode, we delve into the significance of gospel-centered living in our professional and our personal journeys and how they strive to grow as capable and trusted disciples. We're excited to welcome our guest, Kyle Nel, a leader in innovation and transformation. He's currently a partner at Sandbox Industries venture capital firm. Kyle's the former president of Singularity Labs at Singularity University and co-founder of Uncommon Partners, a transformation company. He co-authored Leading Transformation, a best-selling Harvard Business Review press book on driving change through storytelling and neuroscience. As the founder of Lowe's Innovation Labs, Kyle led groundbreaking projects, including augmented and virtual reality stores, autonomous retail robots, and 3D printing technology used in space. I've seen it all. He's also a faculty member at Singularity University and has served on the X Prize Foundation Innovation Board. Kyle holds an MBA from the University of Wisconsin and a bachelor's degree in business management from BYU, Idaho. We're excited for our conversation today on innovation and leadership and transformation. So, Kyle, welcome to the Thrive podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome, Kyle.
Thanks.
Kyle, great to see you.
You too.
Great to see you. We've known each other for a very, very long time. Dates back to about 2002, I believe.
It's true.
Middle
school. We were
you
both in
were a
middle
brand
school.
new return missionary
Yeah.
and a freshman in my very first class that I taught at BYU, Idaho, Introduction to Business. It met at 7 a.m. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And you were there every single day. Just walk us through then till now.
I don't even know how
A lot of things have happened.
I don't even know how to answer that. So much has happened. I don't think I couldn't have drawn a map between that time and where we are now, where things are now. It just wouldn't make any sense. But it kind of is starting to make sense now. So I went, just real quick, I went through BYU, Idaho. It was the perfect experience for me. Small class size. I got to have professors like President Cush, who, I can say, was almost like family over the years. I've called you over the years as I've been through different cycles of my career and asked for advice. You don't get that level of personal relationship when you're in a room taking B101 with 700 people and a bunch of TAs that are teaching you. Nothing wrong with that, but that was not going to work for me. And so from that time, you helped me get involved in a number of different clubs, which we won like crazy. And I had a bunch of experiences in leadership and other things that I just wouldn't have had any other way. And I got through school pretty quick. I got through school in about 3 years. Mm-hmm. And I did a bunch of different internships, so took some time off to do that, and it was really great. And then ultimately started working in advertising. So I worked as a brand planner in an advertising agency after graduation. Met my wonderful wife, Elmira, there. That's another plug for blind dates at a church school. But went through that. It was great, and then got recruited to go work at Clear Channel. And so iHeartRadio is what it's called now. And I ended up getting promoted pretty quick, and I was the director of research there. And then we went to graduate school. So I went to graduate school at University of Wisconsin in Madison, which was wonderful. It's the best marketing research behavioral science program on the planet, still is. Wonderful, wonderful school. Got my MBA there. Before that time, when I knew I was going to school, Elmira and I went to go work at an NGO. We didn't have kids then. We went to go work in an NGO in Costa Rica, which was awesome. And then it just started my career. I worked at Wrigley for a little bit, and during the Wrigley-Mars transition, which was really fun. And then I went and I wormed my way somehow into working at Walmart, because I thought Walmart would be like the ultimate grand experience for research, which was really wonderful. Spent some time there, and then got recruited to Lowe's because I speak Spanish and Portuguese for my mission, and that's where things got really interesting. And then built the Lowe's Innovation Labs after a little bit of time there. We built all kinds of crazy things. We built the first 3D printer in space, or helped to build it. We built the first autonomous robots. We built the largest virtual reality showrooms in stores. This is over a decade ago. All kinds of things for that. It's kind of got you can build stuff really quick if you just apply the skills that, frankly, I learned on my mission and then really started to hone when I came to BYU, Idaho. and then just applying it over and over and over again. And I think that's how we got to be where we are now. And man, I mean, we had built a bunch of different companies, sold those companies, and now I'm a partner at Sandbox Industries, which is a wonderful venture capital firm.
Yeah, it's an amazing path, really. And so, you know, when I think about you and what I know about your career, I think about innovation, I think about disruption. These have been hallmarks of what you've done. And was this sort of always part of Kyle Nel, or did they evolve? And, you know, I mean, for example, how did you think of using comics for some of the innovative stuff that you did at Lowe's, I think it was?
My mom reminds me that I was always getting in trouble in school for distracting others. So I just kind of been distracting others for a long time and just turned it into a career. But but no, the things when I really took seriously what I learned on my mission and what I learned in my gospel study, and then also too that basically everything is a giant narrative. The gospel plan, you could call it, the plan of salvation is a giant narrative that's playing out. So if you think about, there's like if the master creator is laying it all out for you in a narrative form, then we're performing little mini narratives inside of that grand narrative. And so why don't we use those same kind of tools the Savior taught in parables? So that's basically a narrative structure. Like why don't we try to understand how that drives behavior? And I'd seen that in my academic world and a whole bunch of other things. So I had this like big, unified grand theory for how big companies could transform themselves. It's something you only can do in your mid-20s when you think you know everything. And but I hadn't proven it out yet. So I had to prove it out somewhere. And somehow I lucked into, or by grace, wormed my way into the good graces of the CEO of Lowe's, and he let me do it. He let me just try it out. And we use behavioral science, specifically narrative, as a driving force, and comic books in order to figure out the future and then work backwards. And that's how we built everything. And that's how I've built everything in our whole life. It's been, even as a family, that's what we do. On the beginning of January, we write our Christmas card for the next year, just for us. And so we can say like, oh, well, Alice did this, and Dad did this, and Mom did this, and Abe did this. And then that way we can kind of say, okay, when new things come up, is this going to change our plan, or are we going to stick to the plan, the family plan, along the way, rather than just writing a bunch of goals?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Fantastic. Kyle, change is really amazing, right? The pace of change in society. But many organizations struggle with change.
Yes.
What would you say, how do you help leaders overcome resistance and take bold steps to embracing change and helping that shape the future?
Yeah, so the fun thing is that this is the good old days. Like, we'll look back at this time, 2026, it was so quaint. Remember when people were just starting to use large language models in a real way? And, remember, like, that'll be like the cute time. We'll look back on, kind of like how people look back at the 90s of like, remember when there were compact discs and we put them in a player? And like, that's how we'll see it. So this is the easy time. It's only going to get steeper and more difficult. I think having done this now for a couple of decades, which is kind of scary to say out loud, is that, and worked in all kinds of different fields, is that every single problem is either created or solved by humans and the organizations that people put around humans. Yeah. So it's really easy to like slap on a bunch of AI and try a bunch of new fancy stuff. What that does is just reveal the problems and the leakiness in your organization and in your system. If you have a bad management structure, it's going to reveal it even more. So what this is really doing is just showing the inefficiencies in the system. And so it's a good time to relook at the human part first and then apply technology. Because so many times, I just was talking to a CEO of a large firm this morning. Same thing. Oh, Kyle, can you help us we need to figure out how we can put in a large language model or an AI into our system. That's what we do. That's what I do all day. But the first question is, show me your org structure. What are your goals? How have you been tracking over time? What other things have you done first before we talk about technology? So it's always humans first. And again, it goes back again to the Savior. It's always the human first. You think about the humans, then you think about systems later. And now we just have fancier systems, but they're still just humans and systems. And if you just think about it that way, it becomes very, very clear as to what you're doing and where you go.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
So you've done a lot of things professionally.
A lot of things.
A lot of things professionally. But you're now serving as a pathway missionary.
I am. It's awesome.
BYU Pathway, and you've been doing that for a while. Would you just tell us about your work with Pathway and what you're doing? I mean, there's some amazing things I know that are happening, and with jobs and employment, and just help us understand all the exciting things that are going on.
It is wild. So I did not think you got called on a mission when you were in your 40s with small kids, but it was great. We had a ranch in Texas, and we were living our best life. We were having a grand old time. But there felt like there was something more out there to do other than making rich people richer, frankly. And so how do we apply these skills? And you go back again, just before I get into the Pathway thing. If you look back, and I can share these slides, you've seen them before, but like I went and looked back at all of the major innovations that happened right before the Restoration that allowed the Restoration to just explode all across the world. That couldn't have happened a century before, or just technologically couldn't have happened in the same way that the Romans laid the roads for Paul as a citizen to be able to traverse and spread the gospel everywhere. We had a similar series, but they were more technological than they were physical, right? And then you have post the Restoration, all of the amazing things that have happened. And now we're in this if you just cut it in the last 20 years, 10 years even, the stuff that's happened to allow the gospel to flourish, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the stuff that people are oohing and awing about now is super antiquated to what's actually there. The future is here, is just not evenly distributed. It is unbelievable. And when you look at it through gospel eyes, you think, oh my goodness, the Heavenly Father is providing these specific tools at this specific moment. For what? And we know that it's for the gathering of Israel. The Lord is hastening his work. The prophets have been saying this for a long time, but they're saying it more specifically with more urgency, right? So if you apply that lens, this technology is not to just become rich or to get your Amazon order faster, nothing wrong with that, but to really do something big to gather Heavenly Father's children together before he comes again. That's my working narrative premise. Then you start to think about things in a different way, and then people start to kind of come around that are about that. And that's kind of how this all started, thanks to you, actually. And so we started down this path so BYU Pathway is an incredible program. It's a true miracle in its day. So we're closing in on, by the time this airs, probably about 100,000 students, so 90 to 100,000 students, most of which are outside the United States and Canada. And these are people that this is their first time engaging in a Western-style education at that level. And so one thing to get an education. Why do people get an education? It's not just for personal growth, which is a nice benefit, but the primary reason is to get a job. We want jobs. And so, but you can't really get a job if you're living in a small village in the middle of West Africa. You can't just walk down the street and get a job at KPMG. Those jobs just don't exist. So that was the mandate. There were initially about 10 of us that were called on this mission that was very, very, very ambiguous. Go and figure out jobs for Pathway students. It was that ambiguous. And since then, we've tried a bunch of different things. You had Matt Downs on here before. Matt is my boss at Sandbox, and also he's our head mission. He's my mission leader, or my zone leader on the cab. But that's really as wide it was. It was how do we get jobs for these Pathway students? And so we've tried so many different things, and we kind of wandered around. It feels very much like we're living out a Doctrine and Covenants early days, go and figure out Canada. But right now where we are is we're building companies that then can train and employ Pathway students as a college job. So when I went to BYU Idaho, or when I went to Wisconsin, there were college jobs available, just like an Ensign. There were college jobs available for me. I could do janitorial work, or I worked at the Career Center.
Yeah, you were an advisor for a while, I think.
Yeah. I was, and it was great, and I learned a lot, but it was a job for me as a student that I could do. But there aren't jobs like that if you work if you go to school online. And so how do you get that job? And that's what we're trying to create. So we can talk about Pearl. Pearl is probably the biggest one right now. It is a digital marketing company where we partner with real companies, so mostly Western companies, and then we built this AI system where we can scrape the internet in real time, every single social media thing, every single thing on the planet, and find good things about you, bad things about you, score your organization, and then what we do is the internet highly values real humans. So it goes back again to the Lord's preparing his people. With all the technology, the tech really highly values human stuff. So our imperfections are actually highly valuable. So we train and teach our students how to respond back. So say somebody, you're in home security, and someone types in like, what's the best home security in my area? The person that's living in West Africa will respond back as the brand and saying, hey, I'm from such and such a brand. Here's a bunch of things about our company. No trickery, no weirdness, no astroturfing as it's called.
Yep.
And it provides a great job for them. It's hugely beneficial to these companies. It moves their AIO score up. So we might have heard of SEO, but like we search on ChatGPT, what's the best home security?
Sure.
You want your company to be number one. There's a whole bunch of science about that, and all of that then moves the needle for those companies, and it provides wonderful experience, real digital marketing experience for these students, and money so they can provide and live.
Well, this is awesome. And, the wonderful thing is the consecrated work that so many are doing to bless lives of students all over the world.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. The people that are showing up are just incredible. I mean, incredible technology folks, incredible sales folks. It's just amazing.
That's
it
great.
It really is amazing.
Kyle, and this really has the ability to scale, right?
Oh, yeah.
You look at the pathway numbers, the projections there. You're putting things in place, relationships with employers that allow those jobs to be fulfilled and by the students that are in the local countries in which they live.
Absolutely, and they can stay where they are.
Yep.
So you don't have to move to the big city. You don't have to. You stay right where you are. You can grow your family. You can grow Zion right where you live.
And that's the
it's
whole
beautiful.
idea of the pathway model.
And that's it. And it really is working now. And Pearl is just one example of there are many others that are doing similar things in wildly different fields.
Yep.
And all of those little shoots are starting to grow. So that we can provide jobs for all these folks, or opportunities for jobs. I mean, these are real jobs. This is not a charity.
Yeah.
You really have a real opportunity to work. If you work well, you get promoted. Things go well. If you don't, then it's not a handout.
Yep.
And so it's been really, really great to see.
Remarkable. Kyle, we have to talk about AI.
Yeah.
It continues to change every single day. AI, automation, emerging tech are rapidly changing industries. What advice would you give to young professionals about how to prepare for careers in a world that is constantly changing?
Great question. It's a question I get a lot. And I would just say anyone that's leaving school right now as a young person, there's an assumption that you really know AI. AI is like a loose term for a whole bunch of different things, of course. But there's an assumption that you really know stuff. Doesn't matter what field you're coming out of, there's just an assumption that you do. So you're kind of already, there's a big assumption there, which means that there's a responsibility on your end to figure it out. There's two sides for all these kind of technologies. There's the user, it's like a consumer of it. So anyone can have ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and you can use it and you can be proficient in it. That's critical. But then there's the next side, which I think is the most important side, is to be at least a decent builder. So there's very little, like when I came out of school, it was very hard to build stuff. You had to really learn how to code. You had to really learn how to do stuff. Now, like, you don't need to code at all. I'm a terrible coder. I can code a little bit, but I use everything. People call it vibe coding or whatever. I use all these different tools to build things from scratch. So Perl, the first version of it, was entirely built using AI tools, and it worked really good. But now it's much, much, much better because we actually hardened it. But if you were to take my advice to anybody doing school right now, no matter what your field is to get really good at these key tools, and then also to become a builder. And what I mean by that is learning how to use Claude Code, learning how to use any of these other kind of like vibe coding solutions, as well as like Lovable or Bolt. So you can take an idea. So how magical is it if you can take an idea, someone's talking about, oh, I wish that this existed or that existed. And President Kush has seen me do this. You go, oh, okay, pull it up. You create a really rough POC within 10 minutes. The person that can do that looks like they're walking around like with magic in their laptop. And that person will be at all the key things that are coming up, and that person will be batting way above where they should be and be in positions that they wouldn't be before. And the cost to be able to learn that is maybe 10 hours, maybe 20 hours to be really good at it.
Yep.
And you're not going to learn, no offense, you're not going to learn that in school because it's happening so fast that you really just have to be learning it on YouTube and online. The cost is zero. It's just 20 hours of your time to really sit down and learn it. I mean, that's talk about a cheat code for life.
Yeah, so the resources are out there, they can find them, and that's going to be a huge differentiator for them in any job environment or employer.
Or life.
Or
too.
life as well.
Yeah, so even like Elders Quorum, like I teach Elders Quorum every once in a while, and so I put all of the notes from there into a little website. And the conversion from my notes to a website is like 5 minutes. And it looks pretty good with all the links to everything. Just like little things you can do that make it so much easier for people to use and to consume. And then the other part of it is it's not done. So it's always constantly changing and things are getting better. So staying on that path and continuing that learning so that you as the new person in the organization can be the source of like, hey, I heard about, or what about? And if you're that person that they ask, oh man, you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is that AI is like this big. And it's like, where do I start?
Yeah.
If I don't know much, or if I want to be that person with those capabilities, where do I start? And then how do I stay relevant and current? That's
Super hard.
That's a challenge.
Super hard.
That's where learning how to learn, I think, is really, really vital.
That's it. And where that is, and to answer those questions, constantly shifts because who's in the know and who's making stuff. Is it Claude? Is it Gemini? Is it like it shifts constantly,
Yeah.
and so you really do have to stay there.
Yeah.
But there are resources that are available that are free or next to free. Google offers some really great like starter kit things that you can take and become certified. There's a bunch of different places if you just look a little bit like in a focused way, and then set an agenda for yourself. Is really, really powerful.
Fantastic. We want to shift a little bit and talk about faith and values in business. What's one experience where your personal values influenced a tough business decision?
Ooh, that's a good one. There's a bunch that I want to talk about, but I cannot talk about because of how sensitive they are. So I will say that happens all the time. The one that comes to mind that I probably can talk about without talking about the actual names, one of the companies that I sold, so I built a company post Lowe's and then sold that company pretty quickly. And in that process of selling a company, when you're selling a company, it's like a massive job interview. So you're having a job interview, but you're also thinking about the people that work for you, and you're thinking about what's going to happen post. It's very there's a lot of stakeholders in your brain, and there's a lot of stakeholders on the other side too, because you're going to integrate into that system. And the folks that we were interviewing, that I was having this we were going to sell. Like we were getting to the point where we were talking numbers. It was very specific, and so we had this like negotiating thing. And then we go to dinner, as you do, right? And the CEO of the company that was acquiring us, really nice guy, we become friends, and he looks at me and he goes, Kyle, I was reading this book, but whatever it is, and it happened to have some stuff about the church in it that was totally like, out of pocket, like weird. You know how like you can phrase anything weird. And he's like, you don't really believe in that stuff, do you? I'm like, come on. You can tell me. Like you just couldn't. He's like, you seem like you're a reasonable person. I've known you for a while, and they're like, you don't really believe this stuff. Now, this is like San Francisco, like all the stereotypes. But it's like, what? Do you really believe this stuff? Now, it would have been easy, I think, to go, like the natural man was like, kind of wanted to just like downplay, like, let's get back to the thing. And I was like, no, like, I do believe in this. It's real. This really happened. And I have a testimony of it because I've studied it and I've lived it. And you can too. You know what? You can too. And I pulled it up and I was like, showed him the gospel library. I'm like, you want to learn? Like, here's the real stuff. Like, here you can learn it too. And then we got into like quantum physics stuff. I'm like, you believe this whole world is basically a simulation? Well, if the math detects a simulation, I kind of believe that too, except I believe that Heavenly Father is the one that created all this. And he's like, oh, okay. So we moved on to the next topic, and it was really weird, but it was like it wasn't combative. It was no, I really do believe this, and you know what? If we're going to work together at that level, you need to understand that isn't an aberration of who I am. That is what makes me who I am. And so if we're not aligned on that, this is not going to be a good fit. And I think a part of it too was that it was kind of testing to see if I really was going to push back. And there's been other times where I haven't done a great job, but that was one where it did work
being
out.
honest and straightforward didn't disrupt the deal in any way, but it actually solidified things for you with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
So, Kyle, you have traveled the world.
Yeah,
You've gone into space.
I have.
You're a published author. You're an in-demand speaker. We're fortunate that you came and spent this time with us. Today, you're a serial entrepreneur and a venture capitalist. But I also know that you're very dedicated to your family and to the Lord and to the gospel, as you've just expressed. And so through all of your success and all of the things that you've experienced and the things that have worked in your favor and some things I suppose that haven't, But it could have been very easy to lose your way spiritually. So what have you done? What's made it possible for you to stay so grounded in the gospel and in things that matter most, and to continue being a very faithful Latter-day Saint?
I'm smiling because if my wife was sitting here, she may not think that I'm so grounded. But I would say that the first thing that comes to mind is like who you marry is the most important decision you'll ever make. And my wife, Almira, is, you know Almira, she's incredible. And so she keeps me grounded. So especially when a little tiny bit of fame showed up, or you're like think that you're a big deal, you go to this conference and people are standing in line to talk to you. You know, that stuff can get to your head. Just even like the slightest bit can kind of get to your head a little bit. You're not great. You're doing something in which you're receiving some sort of something for something that a lot of people worked on, and you might be the one that gets the credit for it.
Yeah.
I think that, so number one, it's who you marry, and staying in line with her or him, and I think that's critical. The other piece was to just be willing to jump. So we have, Almira and I have always had this saying in our family, which is we're ready to leave at any moment. We're ready to drop at any moment. So it doesn't matter what we're doing. If we feel like we should move, we'll move. And there's a reason why we've moved 14 times in 17 years, because we just are willing to jump at an opportunity that we feel like the Lord wants us to do, or it's good for our family. And we have moved a lot because of that. And that's not for everybody, but we're willing to like drop anything because we want to be tied down to those things. And then the last thing is just trying to, for me, like whenever I get really frustrated about something, because I'm a very type A person, like I need to get things accomplished.
We didn't notice.
Yeah.
I would have never
President
guessed.
knows. President knows. I have a hard time with patience. It's one of my great weaknesses. I have a really hard time with patience. My dad will tell me. Apparently, the lore, the Nel family lore, is that in my baby blessing, my dad blessed me with patience because I'm not a patient soul. But I think the part of it too is really, as I get older, the more I recognize that the simple truths of the gospel help in every aspect along the way. Heavenly Father just wants to gather his children together. He loves us so much, and he is providing a way for us here, and he's providing us a way through all across the world to gather his children. And it is happening right now. So the options are, Heavenly Father is gathering his children, and you can be a part of it any way that you want to be a part of it. If you just are providing for your family and doing a good thing, you are helping to gather Israel. If you're a compassionate service leader in Relief Society, you are gathering Israel. Whatever it is, you're gathering Israel. And if you think about your job as helping to gather Israel, it helps me change my mindset on how I deal with people. Yeah. And all of those things I've never been perfect at by any stretch. But like when you try it and when you deviate from that, and having your significant other help, your spouse help push you back, and then having the gospel as your constant companion, like it changes everything.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, we're going to wrap up with just this one last question.
Yeah, sure.
For students, for aspiring leaders, for all of us at Ensign College, is there one principle that you believe that would be the most beneficial to just help people in their education and their professional lives and their personal lives that something you'd share?
Yeah, it's something that Matt, who you had on before,
Yep.
said a long time ago, it resonates with me so much, is that the scriptures are full of founders. So we think about founders as people that go off with a clear mission, not really exactly sure what it's going to take to accomplish that mission. Nephi is like the perfect example of that, right? Oh, I'm going to go and leave Jerusalem. I was the rich kid. I'm going to go figure out, broke my bow. Oh, I guess we have to make another bow. Let's go mine some more. Like every single thing. Nephi is a founder. If we have a founder's mindset, I think that is a good mindset to have for anything that we're doing. You can have a founder's mindset in school. You should have a founder's mindset in school. You should have a founder's mindset when you're doing your first job, when you're doing your job search, whatever it is, and definitely when you're serving in your calling at church, definitely when you're serving in your family. If you have a founder's mindset, then you have a can-do, we can figure out what to do mindset. You can figure out where to find ore in them their hills and go and mine it. And if you have that kind of stuff, that's the pioneer way. They were all founders. Then you can do incredible things. And then the other thing I think, is you don't have to know everything. I think there's such a belief, especially as I talk to executives all over the world, folks from big companies, do you think that have it all figured out? And President, you guys would know, the people you think have it all figured out, they're just figuring it out too, especially when it comes to all this technology and stuff. So there is not an asymmetry of knowledge. There's an asymmetry of effort. And that's the hard part there. Because as it says in 1 Nephi, when the Lord is revealing to Nephi all of the stuff that his father had seen, and he's asking, the Spirit's asking him a series, showing him things and asking him questions. And he says, knowest thou the condescension of God? And Nephi is just very honest. He goes, I don't know. He's like, but I do know that the Lord loveth his children. And that's for me, like every single time, if you go back to, like, I may not understand, but I know that he loves me, and I know that he loves his children, how would that help me reframe what I'm working on, or how I'm serving, or how I'm acting? It, like, clears up, for me, it clears up everything, every single time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wonderful.
Kyle Nel, thank you.
Thank you.
And please know how much we love you. We appreciate you, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. And I've got to say, this might get cut, but I got to say, President Cush changed my life. And I don't say that lightly, like changed my life. I do not know where I would be without you and without BYU Idaho. I'm just very, very grateful.
It was my blessing. Thanks.
Joy unspeakable.